Good morning. Welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey, and today we're going to be prepping some breakfast and some dinner for the autumn equinox celebration. Now, in pagan traditions, this is called Mabon, and it's a celebration of the second harvest of the year, the first being in August, the third being on Halloween. And this is just a day to celebrate kind of the end of the speed and busyness of summer. As we move into longer nights and slower days, we're going to relax a little bit throughout the fall and winter. So this is just a celebration of that time. This is also a time that you can start thinking about things that you want to get out of your life. So this holiday or this celebration falls on the autumn equinox, first day of fall, and it's a good time to reflect on what has happened so far in your year, and also to start thinking about what things that you are ready to get rid of in your lives. Things that no longer serve you and should be let go, just like the fall is the start of the garden kind of starting to die off and prepare for it to regenerate over the winter. So whatever your religious beliefs, this channel, we don't talk about religion or politics. We're not going to debate it, what your beliefs are. We are just going to celebrate this day because it's a fun day to use these recipes, and it's a good time to just think about some of these things. So for breakfast, we are going to have, let me find what the title of this recipe is, gingerbread pancakes with fried apples. Delicious. So we're going to start by mixing up our pancake batter, and then we'll cut up our apples and get those cooking. So we're going to start with ginger, and it depends on how much of a ginger flavor that you want. You can use anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon. I am going to go ahead and use a tablespoon because I like that ginger flavor. We want a tablespoon of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And then we want 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. We're just going to use a fork. We're going to just mix that all together. Move this stuff out of the way. Okay, we're going to add 1.5 cups of milk. One egg, and then we're going to melt 3.5 tablespoons of butter. So while our butter's melting, I'm going to go ahead and use my fork to get this all stirred up, and then we'll add our melted butter, and we will stir that in as well. Okay, so here's our melted butter. Go ahead and stir that in, and then we're just going to set this to the side while we work on our apples. For our apples, we want about 5 medium tart apples. And I'm going to use my little apple slicer corer thing here. I actually am going to cut this recipe just a little bit because it's just me. So I'm just going to use 3 apples, and then I'll mix everything else up the same. I will include this recipe, all of these recipes that we're going to do today, in the description box, but just know I'm cutting this back a little bit because it's just me. So when I did my apple fall baking recipes, I threw the peels away and I realized when it was too late, I should have kept them, and I can do something different with those. So go ahead and peel them. I'm going to put the peels in this bowl, and you do want to make sure you've got all the peel off of your apple. And then I'm going to cut them a little bit wider than we did for our apple baking. So I'm just going to cut each of these slices in half so the apples are a little thicker. All right, just a few more slices and we'll have our apples all done. Okay, apples are ready. All right, so now we're going to melt a cup of butter. Over medium heat, and the author does suggest using a cast iron skillet, so that's what I'm going to do. While that's melting, I'm going to go ahead and get our sugars ready. So we need a half a cup of brown sugar that I just dropped all over my counter, and a quarter cup of white sugar. Go ahead and mix those together. And then to our sugars, we're going to add 2 to 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, depending on how cinnamony you like things. I like mine cinnamony, so I'm going to go ahead and add 3 teaspoons, which is the same as a tablespoon. And I'm going to mix that into my sugar. All right, our butter's almost melted, so we're going to go ahead and stir in our sugar and cinnamon. I'm going to let this cook a little bit until it starts bubbling up, and then we'll add our apples. Alright, I'm starting to see some bubbles now, so I'm going to go ahead and add our apples. And I'm just going to stir those in so that they're all mixed into this sugar and butter and cinnamon mixture. And we're just going to go ahead and let those cook. So while those are cooking, we're going to go ahead and melt some butter in a nonstick skillet, and we're going to work on our pancakes. We want to melt our butter over medium heat so that we don't want it to get too hot. And we do want to keep an eye on our apples and keep stirring them. And I just realized that even though I reduced the amount of apples that I put in here, I forgot to reduce the other ingredients, so it's probably going to be a little soupy. That's okay. Okay, so our butter is melted in our other skillet, and so now I'm just going to put a scoop of our pancake batter in our melted butter, and we're just going to fry it up. So we'll just let our pancake cook until it starts bubbling up and looking dry on the edges, and then we will flip it over. Oops, now I almost forgot about it. Oh, there we go. Alrighty, there's our first pancake. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep working on my pancakes, and we'll let the apples keep cooking, and when everything is done, I'll come back and we'll take a look at it. Alrighty, last pancake. All right, last pancake is done. I'm gonna put a couple on my plate. And I'm gonna put some of these apples on top. Ooh, that looks really good. Okay, so now we are going to top this with some pure maple syrup. This one's almost empty. There we go. And then we're going to give it a try. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. The ginger, the cinnamon, the apple, oh, so good. Okay, so I'm gonna eat my breakfast. I have a whole plate of pancakes that I made. I'm gonna let those cool. Then I'm going to put a little piece of parchment paper between each one and stack them up, put them in a freezer bag and stick them in my freezer. The parchment paper is just so they don't stick together. And then I can pull a couple out, throw them in the toaster or the microwave here or at work, whichever. And I do have quite a bit of the fried apples left, so I can put those in a bowl when it's cool and I can use those on pancakes or really whatever I want. So, breakfast is done. It's delicious. I'm going to go ahead and eat my breakfast. I'll be back later this afternoon when we're ready to start prepping for dinner. For dinner, we are having pork chops, bacon maple cornbread, fried zucchini, and then for dessert, we're going to have bourbon apple crisp. So, I'll be back in a little while and we'll start working on the next phase of our meals for today. Okay, so part of the dinner that we're making tonight, we need some bacon. The recipe calls for 8 slices. I'm gonna cook up whatever I have in one package. It might only be 8 slices, I'm not sure. But I'm gonna go ahead and cook it all since it's thawed, and then whatever I have left, I can just put in the refrigerator to use in other recipes or just eat as it is. I'm gonna cook my bacon in the oven. If you've never tried it that way, it's so simple. You can just use a cookie sheet with a cooling rack and put foil or parchment paper or something in the cookie sheet. I have an oven, like a roasting pan, that I'm going to put the bacon on, and we're going to cook it like that. So I'm just going to lay my slices of bacon on this rack. And I do have another one similar to this if this doesn't hold at all, and it doesn't look like it's going to. So I'll go ahead and get the other rack out. It will serve the same purpose, and it should hold the rest of it. So I've got 7 slices on this one, and we'll put the rest on this smaller one. So there's 5 more slices on this one. And just in case, I'm going to go ahead and set the smaller one on a cookie sheet so it doesn't drip over. I've got my oven preheating to 350, and then when that's preheated, we'll get those in there and we'll let them cook. All right, our bacon is done. So what I'm going to do is set these pans up here and we'll let them cool a little while, and then I'll pour this bacon grease into a jar and we'll put it in the refrigerator to use for some other purpose. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started putting dinner together. So right now we're going to work on our cornbread. We are making we're making bacon maple cornbread. So we've got our bacon all cooked up, and we're going to start putting our ingredients in this bowl. So we would need 1 cup of yellow cornmeal. We're going to add 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. We want 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. We're going to stir our dry ingredients together. I'm going to go ahead and preheat our oven to 350. We're going to add 1/4 cup of maple syrup. Oh, look at that. That's just about perfect. 2 eggs. One-quarter cup of packed brown sugar. 3/4 of a cup of milk. And then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of butter melted. So there's 2. 3. I'm going to go ahead and start whisking this all together. We'll add our 3 tablespoons of butter. And then we're just going to whisk this all together until it's smooth. Then we're going to take our 8 pieces of bacon and we're just going to chop it in kind of rough hunks. Not tiny pieces, but not too big. And we're going to save about 2 pieces or 1.5 pieces for garnish on the top of our cornbread when we're all done. I'll try and save the crispiest pieces as garnish. All right. We'll put this back on the paper plate and we'll just save it for when the cornbread is done and it will go on top. So I'm going to go ahead and stir that bacon into our cornbread mix. Now, along with our cornbread, we are going to have some pork chops. I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in my skillet and get that hot. And then I'm going to season the pork chops with some brown sugar bourbon grill mates. Once our oil's hot, we're going to go ahead and put our pork chops in. Our other cast iron skillet here, I'm going to add a little bit of oil. And I'm going to go ahead and brush that around the bottom of our pan. That. And then the recipe actually calls for us to bake these in muffins, but I am going to put it in my cast iron skillet and bake it in the oven that way. Never had cornbread baked in a cast iron skillet, it is amazing. So we're going to go ahead and turn our heat down now, and we're going to brown our pork chops. We're going to go ahead and season the other side as well. once they're brown on one side, we're going to go ahead and flip them over. And then we're going to put both our pork chops and our cornbread into the oven. We want to bake that about 20 minutes. And I've got some high protein pancake mix here. And I'm just going to make about a half a batch. So we're going to use a half a cup of our mix and a half a cup of water. And you can use any pancake mix that you want. It can be a homemade mix, it can be a store-bought mix. It doesn't really matter. And generally you want it a little thinner than a normal pancake batter. Set this to the side. And I've got a zucchini here. We're going to go ahead and peel this. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If there's some peel left on it, it's not a problem unless you just don't like it. Don't worry about it being perfect. So now I'm going to cut this in slices that are approximately 1/4 inch thick. The more even the slices are, the better this is going to be. The easier it will, the more evenly it will cook, I guess I should say. It does nothing to the flavor. So I put a little oil in my skillet and I've got it heating to kind of a medium. All I'm going to do is dip each of these slices in our pancake batter. But we're going to let that start frying up a little, or we're going to let that heat up a little bit more. We want to make sure that these start frying when we put them in. Now we're going to salt and pepper these. You could add salt and pepper to your pancake mix if you like. I typically just add it when I'm cooking them. While all this is cooking, we're going to go ahead and get our bacon grease in our jar. So I've got a little jelly jar of bacon grease. I'm just going to set it to the side. Once I'm sure it's cool, then I will put a lid on it and put it in the fridge. It is pretty cool, but just to be safe. And we just want to cook our zucchini until the pancake batter is done, and then we'll flip it over and cook it on the other side. So I'm out of pancake batter and I have just a few pieces of zucchini left, so I'm just going to put those slices in the refrigerator and I will cook them with something else tomorrow or the next day. So the time of 20 minutes or 24 minutes, whatever it was for the cornbread muffins. Since I've got it in one big pan, it's going to take a little bit longer. So I just added another 10 minutes to our time. While the main meal finishes making, we are going to go ahead and start prepping for our dessert, which we are making a bourbon apple crisp. So I'm going to go ahead and get my apples cored and peeled and sliced. We want to slice these fairly thin. So I'm going to cut each of my slices that came out of my slicer. I'm going to cut each of those into 3 pieces. Well, most slices will be cut into 3 pieces. Some of them are smaller apples. So I've got 5 tart apples here. All right, to our peeled and sliced apples, we're going to add a tablespoon of bourbon-ish, splash of lemon juice, teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/3 cup of white sugar. This is a 1/4 cup measuring cup. And then we're going to stir all that. We're going to stir all that together. We'll make sure our apples are all covered with our mix. And we're going to start our crisp topping. We want to start with a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. 1/3 cup packed brown sugar, a 1/2 cup of rolled oats, 1 teaspoon pumpkin pie spice mix, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then we're going to melt 6 tablespoons of butter and add to this and mix it all up. I'm just doing this pre-mixing to kind of break up the brown sugar a little bit. All right, our pork chops are done. Let me check the cornbread and just make sure it's done. And it is. We're going to go ahead and finish putting together our apple crisp. So there's 4 tablespoons and 6. Here's our 6 tablespoons of melted butter. The author uses a pie plate, but I'm just going to use this glass baking dish. So we want to spray a little bit in the bottom, and then we're going to add our apples. Spread those out. Ooh, I can smell that. It smells good. All right, now we're going to go ahead and mix up our crisp topping. So we go ahead and sprinkle that over the top of our apples, kind of spreading it around as evenly as I can get it. There we go. And now this goes in a 350-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, everything is done. I'm going to go ahead and put my plate together. So now what we're going to do is, hopefully I can drizzle a little bit. We're going to drizzle just a little maple syrup over our cornbread. Probably should have done this before I took my slice out. And then we're going to put our extra bacon on top of that. I'm going to go ahead and drizzle it on the rest. Sprinkle the rest of our bacon. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to try some of this cornbread. Get a little piece of bacon on there. That's amazing. Really good. Oh man, I could eat that for breakfast. All right, so here's our plate of dinner. Our apple crisp is in the oven. When it's all done, we'll take it out. When I'm done with dinner and that's all done, we'll let it cool a little bit, and then I'll probably have a little bowl of that. All right, the apple crisp is done. Oh, look, it looks amazing. It smells amazing. Okay, so I actually have some homemade caramel sauce from some cookies we made a couple of weeks ago. I'm gonna add some of that to the top of my apple crisp. And we are gonna give this a try. Even though it's super hot. Wow, this is amazing. Okay guys, that is gonna do it for this equinox fall celebration meal day. We had our gingerbread pancakes with our fried apples and maple syrup. Amazing. I've got extras. Obviously I had a ton of extras. I'm gonna take some to work tomorrow for my own breakfast. We had our dinner with our pork chops, our maple bacon cornbread, our fried zucchini, and now our bourbon apple crisp with homemade caramel sauce. So I would call this day a success in terms of our food. So we're gonna end it here. If you guys like this video, please go down and hit the like button. That helps me out. And if you wanna leave a comment, I would appreciate that. I like seeing everyone's comments. I will, of course, leave all of the recipes in the description box, and I look forward to seeing all of you on the next video. Bye, guys.